Hey there, Internet friends. Trevor Starkey here with another episode of Wrestling Wednesday. This week I'm going to look at the recent Extreme Rules pay-per-view, kind of match by match, and give my impressions on each one. So up first we had the Intercontinental match between The Miz and Dean Ambrose. A lot of people have made this joke already, but it's worth repeating that it's kind of absurd that a pay-per-view called Extreme Rules kicks off with a match that basically says one of the opponents has to be as non-extreme as possible or he loses his title. So, way to go. That said, I liked the way they played with all of the different variations of how Dean Ambrose could get disqualified and how he had to fight against it, from things like grabbing the chair away from The Miz, to having to avoid the exposed turnbuckle. Ultimately, I liked that all of the no disqualification stuff ended up serving more as a distraction to Ambrose, and The Miz was able to win more or less clean by kind of using the distraction as the ref is going to slowly decide if he wants to make the disqualification or not. The Miz comes in, lands his finisher, and the ref comes in, counts 1, 2, 3, and Ambrose loses without a disqualification. Clever idea for a match all around, just absurdly in the wrong pay-per-view. Up next, we had the mixed tag match, and as a new/casual fan, this was basically Sasha Banks and 3 other people that I don't know or care about. So at least it made sense that they gave the win to Sasha Banks and her partner. Really couldn't say much about this match, as I spent most of it writing up my Kinda Funny Live recap. So then we had the Women's Championship Kendo on a Stick match, and I really have no idea where creative is going with this. It basically seems like they're just using this whole arc to effectively neuter Bayley, which seems odd. You have Alexa Bliss, who's great, strong on the mic, and great in the ring. You have Bayley, who's great in the ring, loved by fans, also good on the mic. And somehow both of them have just ended up coming across bad in the last couple weeks, month and a half. And I don't know what they're really going for. If the whole thing here was that Bayley can't get extreme, then you're basically saying, oh, she shouldn't have been a wrestler in the first place. So hopefully they just kind of walk away from this, send Alexa Bliss off to other challengers, and try and figure out a way to revitalize Bayley that doesn't have her just coming across as a child. Next up we had the Tag Team Championship match in a steel cage. This match felt like it should have been a lot bigger and a lot better. There should have been a lot more moments outside of really the one big memorable one I have is Jeff jumping off the cage down into Sheamus and Cesaro. So I think this match was weirdly lacking a sense of danger and a sense of pacing. The problem with a steel cage tag match is realistically you're not going to try and climb the cage unless you know that your partner can also get out of the cage. You're not going to try and leave him there to deal with potentially 2 competitors instead of 1. And that's not at all how this played out. You had time and time again performers just going straight for the out and doing kind of a one-on-one bout with whoever they were facing at the moment, leaving their partner potentially in peril if they were to escape. And we end up seeing that with Jeff escaping the cage, where you have Matt left in there with Sheamus and Cesaro. He fends them off for a couple moments, but then they end up double teaming him, and he's kind of left defenseless. Another issue I had was the fact that the door was open, so realistically, in almost any of these cases, you would just go for the door instead of trying to get up and over the cage. I get that it needed to be open, so you had that photo finish with Sheamus and Cesaro falling off one side of the cage while Matt drug Jeff out of the door, but I think there could have been a better way to get us there. I think maybe if you wanted to leave kind of the basic structure of the match the same, you have the door locked, but it can be open from the outside, so Jeff escapes, he gets down, he opens the door and tries to go in and grab Matt. At that point, you lose the spot of him jumping off of the cage down onto Sheamus and Cesaro, but I'm sure you could find another way to work that in. But to have the cage door be able to be opened right from the onset, really, it made no sense. The realistic ending of this match should have been as soon as Sheamus and Cesaro jumped at the beginning of the match for the cage, the Hardy Boys should have just walked right out the door. They would have easily beaten them, and the match would have been done. Would have been a huge fuck you to the audience, but that's realistically how, if they wanted to win it, they could have. Ultimately, I think the outcome was the right call. I think the Hardy Boys coming back and taking the titles and having a strong defense at the last pay-per-view was solid. I think them giving it up here now that Sheamus and Cesaro have gone full heel is a good kind of transition into them, and maybe we can get kind of the Hardy Boys being split up potentially by what happened in this match where you had Jeff leaving Matt left for dead effectively or something like that. You could have them maybe trying to go down the broken route. Then we had the necessary palate cleanser between the steel cage match and the fatal 5-way, the Cruiserweight Championship. I thought this was mostly a solid match, but again, it, like many other matches on the card, suffered from referees kind of flying by the seat of their pants with the rules and the stipulations, because here you have a referee counting out when the only way to win the match is through submission. Having just watched WrestleMania X7 and covered it in last week's episode, I thought there were definite shades of the Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit match from that show in this one. You even have Neville tapping out on the outside of the ring, so it doesn't count, just like you had in WrestleMania X7. You had Angle tapping out to Benoit, but it didn't count because the ref was out for the count before those respective characters ended up kind of rallying and winning the match in the end. I wanted to see Austin Aries take the victory here because I think that feud needs new life breathed into it. Otherwise, I think we need to kind of move on. You've had Aries lose or win, but by disqualification in the last 3 pay-per-views, so Neville has retained in the last 3 pay-per-views, and I think there's just not... It's kind of feeling stale at this point. I think it's time to shake something up. So either I wanted to see Aries win here, or I think it's probably time to kind of have these guys go their separate ways for a little bit and give Neville somebody new to face. And finally, we had the Fatal 5-Way match for the #1 contender slot. I thought this was a solid match all around. There were a lot of great pairings in this match. There were a lot of great spots. You had Roman Reigns spearing Balor and Samoa Joe through the barrier. You had that immediately followed up by Seth Rollins doing a moonsault through Bray Wyatt and the Spanish announce table. One thing that I thought was kind of missed here is in a match like this where you've got so much going on, you've got so many competitors, I think camera choreography is really important. There were too many moments where there were just 2 people in the ring and I was left wondering what was going on with the other 3. Whether they were still out because they'd been taken out in a spot, or if they were fighting on the outside. I just didn't know, because too often the camera just kind of stayed on whatever was going on action-wise in the ring. I think Samoa Joe getting the win is an interesting choice. Him or Bray Wyatt were probably my least expected choices. I thought it was going to go to Balor after he got kind of the christening, the push from Paul Heyman a few weeks ago. And if the rumors are true that Lesnar is going to retain all the way through WrestleMania 34 for a match against Roman Reigns, it sucks that Samoa Joe's kind of going to end up being served up as a sacrificial lamb here at Great Balls of Fire, which is still a stupid name for a pay-per-view. But I think at least we'll get a good match out of it. And I guess that's all we can kind of hope for from a part-time champion with Brock Lesnar. So hopefully they give Samoa Joe a good push and a good match all around. So those are my thoughts on Extreme Rules. Overall, a good enough pay-per-view, fun pay-per-view, some standout moments, really great kind of closing match. Suffered from a lot of the stipulations being very unclear on the rules, or just outright not paying attention to the rules for the sake of the storytelling of the match. Both my buddy Cameron and I were in San Francisco for Kinda Funny Live as Extreme Rules was going on, but we did both make predictions again with another Portillo's bet on the line. We ended up tying, so we're kind of even there, and probably just going to hold off until a Money in the Bank for any kind of next bet. Let me know what you thought about the show in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Trevor Starkey from TrevorTrove.com. You can follow me at SnarkyStarkey on Twitter. And until next time, from here at the Trove, treasure your friends.